animal energy. Whoever started using animals, they probably used them to carry stuff first,
Gotcha.
right? And then they used them to plow and all that. There you go.
Agricultural stuff and things.
Yep. One horse with this is a random thing. One horse with horseshoes is as strong as 10 horses.
Really?
Yep, because they can put more pressure on.
Oh no shit! I had no idea that's what horseshoes were for.
Yeah, they figured it out.
I thought those were to like prevent damage on the hooves or something.
I think so too.
Oh,
like
okay.
it has to do like on harder roads and
Yeah.
stuff, but it also I think keeps it harder so it
Gotcha.
can take more pressure.
That's kind of like shoes for humans. You get more traction.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that
right.
makes sense. Actually, that makes sense.
So horse, ox, cattle. Cattle actually is the word cat. Like it has to do kind of like cap,
Okay.
which is Italian for head. Capella. No.
Okay.
So it's a Latin word. So it came from Latin. So cattle actually referred to anything with a head. So cattle were sheep, cattle were ox, cattle were horses. So anything.
Blanket term
Yep.
for those.
So then that's actually where we got the word capital. Because cap means head, cattle means head, cap. The number of heads you have, that was how you leverage. There you go. We'll keep facts. But energy. So we went from human energy to animal energy. Then we figured out sails on how to master the wind. And we learned how to row. We learned how to sail in the winds. And we were pretty good at wind energy. But we also couldn't make that good of boats until about 1492. That's when Columbus. And the first time Columbus reached the New World, the Americas, actually at the same time, it was the first time Portuguese or European sailors in Western Europe rounded the Horn of Africa. So that was it. If you look at a map of Portugal, you know how it's on like that outside part? They wanted to get the spice trade that was controlled by Venice during the Renaissance. That's how the Medici family and all that, they controlled the transfer, the wind energy to get the food energy. Yeah. So they got on the spice trade. So they were masters of logistics of energy. Wow. So that's how they became one of the greatest powers, financial powers and trading powers, because they had monopolies on the trade routes, on how to get the spices throughout Europe. So that happened all throughout Renaissance Europe and medieval Europe. And what ended up happening was the Portuguese had enough of that bullshit. And Spanish, they said, we're not going to go through you guys. They used their own technology. They made fantastic boats. That's what their technology was. Yeah. So that they used those to master how to get to the New World and the Horn of Africa in the same year.
Interesting.
And funny part, because we're going to talk about China, how they control the world and our futures, and they already own us. It's over.
Before you say anything, I agree. But I'd love to hear your explanation for it.
China, already won. They can do whatever they want. The only thing that can save us is that they lose control of 1.5 billion people. And it's pretty hard. It's pretty hard with a crazy totalitarian government that's coming into the middle class. Like, there's going to be some weird shit happening. Yeah. It's going to get really whatever. So only internal factors are going to be able to disrupt them. External factors, not too much.
One thing about, you said, obviously before Columbus, they weren't using actual sails. So what would, like, the Chinese, for instance, what would, like, the Scandinavians, like,
they were using all sails.
Okay, so were those not before Columbus?
We've been using sails since way before, like the time of Alexander and all that. Okay, that was like 500 BC. Yeah. And they definitely had sails. Gotcha. It's just the cloth technology.
They kind of mastered it. I misunderstood what you meant by that.
And it wasn't as advanced, so they didn't have as strong as metals. They didn't have as strong as sails. They didn't have as strong as woods. The technology wasn't there. Then over almost 1,500, 2,000 years, they managed to make boats that can go across the fucking Atlantic, which is insane. A wooden boat going across the Atlantic.
Dude, that's how I think about, like, the freaking Mayflower. You know how crazy those people must have freaking been?
I look at that all the time. I'm like, who would be on a fucking boat in November?
Crazy,
right? Like, November cold with those waves.
these people just collectively decided, yeah, we're gonna sail away on this death trap across somewhere we have no understanding of,
Dude.
with barely any food or rations,
No.
in hopes there's actually land where we're going. You know how crazy that is? And people took their kids and they're like, dude, that's so crazy.
And they traveled by the stars. Some of the amazing innovations were traveling by stars, and then they were able to map out latitudes and longitudes and stuff. According
Even
to the
back then?
Yeah,
Wow.
well,
I
yeah,
knew the stars. I didn't know
yeah.
the longitude and shit. Wow.
but that came in about 1700.
Wow.
Yeah, and then they had all sorts of ways, like it's called like a sextant. If you saw it, it's a little tool that's used to like measure horizon stuff.
Gotcha.
And it's crazy that they use stars to navigate, but they did, and that's crazy.
Interesting.
Yeah, and tides. But so yeah. Oh, but at the same time that the Portuguese in 1492 were able, or Spanish, were able to send ships to the Atlantic and send ships to around the Horn of Africa to find new spices.
Yeah.
Because that's when they say Columbus was looking for India.
Yeah.
He was looking for alternative trade routes to India.
Gotcha.
That's why they went around Africa too. They were just like, send all the boats everywhere.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, because he knew he didn't hit India when he hit America. He was pretty so. That's pretty like historically accurate that he knew where he wasn't in India. But,
Exactly.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, China, who's going to take over the world, they actually just finished like some Civil War stuff.
Gotcha.
And what happened was the winning dynasty ended up saying, no more scientific exploration, no more adventuring out into the world. So in 1492, the Portuguese got a monopoly of the ocean and with the spice trades and all that stuff. And they went up. It's crazy that they speak Spanish in like the Philippines and stuff, isn't it? You know what I mean? In Asia, that's how far Spain went.
Conquistadors and shit like that.
Yeah.
Even before that.
Conquistadors. You say conquistadors.
Conquistadors. I apologize, all the Hispanic conquistador lovers out there. I apologize.
A quisadilla.
Dude, my best friend's El Salvadorian. Obviously, that's not Spanish or Portuguese, but he's going to persecute me from the mispronunciation when he hears
right.
that.
Right. So so then China gave up all of their searching. So they brought everything in at the same time Europeans were spreading out. And then we saw the effect of all of that for the next 200 years afterwards of European powers colonizing places like India, whereas it could have just as easily been the Chinese. But so that's wind energy, human energy, and what else do we have for our other? Oh, then we discovered like water, windmills, and all that stuff. The Romans used water wheels and all that stuff. Then what happened was we had animals, people, water, but then and energy, slave labor.
Yeah.
Human laborers are
that
is one form of energy, and it's not just American slavery. Slavery is what built the pyramids.
Yeah.
10,000 years ago.
they say.
So we've just been, every generation has just massive enslavements
Yep.
in varying degrees.
Yeah, native peoples and all around the world were having slaves.
Yep.
Obviously, Mesopotamia had it's always been a thing.
And
for
it exists
some reason.
today.
Yeah.
Yep.
We were talking that before this, the modern slavery, basically, the slave trade. It's insane.
Yep. So human labor, animals, wind. But then we found out about this stuff called coal. In about 1780, we found out about coal. And then we were able to change the world. Because then you could use the burning of coal, which is all primarily just pure carbon.
Yeah.
So you can unleash the power of the sun. Because it's all sun power.
Yeah.
This is just billions of years old. Take that, burn it, turn it into steam. And then that can turn that steam into directions going horizontal that way or vertical this way. So that can change the motion, use energy to make motion. And that's how we started building from about 1780. Then the next 40 years was crazy. That was the Industrial Revolution. So we used coal to... The first things they started to use coal for was to start making machinery to dig up more coal.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
That was like the first thing they did. So then
It's like Minecraft. You build up friggin' steel to build steel to harvest steel.
Exactly.
Yeah,
See,
yeah.
they got the idea from the reality.
Yeah.
So we get there, and then where do we go? So then that happened until about 1850, and we got really good at steam production. That's when we had the Industrial Revolution, and then that's when we made textiles, and then we used the textiles and coal and all that shit, and the water wheels. That's what we used in Massachusetts, and we harnessed that energy. And actually, Lawrence, as a mill town, was essentially the Silicon Valley of the United States.
Wow.
Yep, they were the most technically advanced city there possibly could be. They had
Controlling narratives and shit.
no,
I'm just
it's true,
kidding.
but
Yeah.
they were in the industrialists,
Yeah,
so that's
no,
how it
it's-
happened. But then they started,
That's crazy.
yep, and then coal, you can make stronger metals, so it all went into a big thing of more coal, stronger metals, power, more powerful machines.
Yes.
So that's why we had all of our trains, all just big steel machinery. And then during the change of those revolutions, energy, our fundamental understanding of it, mechanized things. So we ended up taking the mechanical energy of steam and coal and turning it into, what did we do? We turned it into steam and coal. Oh, the mechanization of the world with coal, we ended up displacing farm workers.
Gotcha.
And that's how we got the big power struggle, because the South owned slaves and crops and food, primary movers of energy, slaves. We didn't like that because we had machines.
The North was doing the opposite.
Machines, because and then that's where the social and economic convergence happened.
Gotcha.
Yes, slavery is bad or whatever, but what helped us get rid of slavery was the replacement value of machines, right? Like you could do more with
That's
machines.
sensible, yeah.
So that went on, and then we found out in probably like 1880, a little bit way before 1880. That's when the 1880s is when the whole modern world was born. Because a little bit before that, we found out about oil. So that the first industrial revolution was coal. Then we hit up oil, found out all about that shit.
Yeah.
And then
We know how that went.
right,
Yeah.
and that really took over the world. It turned into plastics, or just even materials. The first oil pump was coal powered, right? Because it has to be.
It's all work what they had. Yeah.
So then once they started using oil, and oil is a liquid, so you can put it into moving vehicles better. And it was made for lighting.
Yep.
So we used oil for lighting. That's where Standard Oil and Rockefeller came from.
Scumbags. Yep.
But before he became a scumbag, he brought us into the modern world. So you can shit on people for bringing us in, becoming scumbags by ruling the world, but it's because they perform the logistical consolidation of energy forces to change the world.
I'm not disagreeing.
Because it happened, like I mentioned earlier, happened with Medici to control the spice trade.
Spices, yeah.
Then it happened to the next biggest empire 100 years after that of Spain and Portuguese. Then it happened to the United States. We became leaders in coal production and oil production.
Gotcha, yeah.
So we're not assholes, like I said. We're just...
I got a preconceived bias. If you're a Carnegie, Rockefeller, Rothschilds, if you're one of those families, I look at you as the conspiracy Toromana guy I am. All the things I've heard, all the things I've seen them say and talk about and discuss, and their actual agendas, they are epitome of the it's a overused term, but the New World Order agenda type of thing. They're epitome of against humanity and only care about profits and whoever they interbreed within their families, within other families. That's what they do. They interbreed between certain families to make certain bloodlines. They've done it for It's insane. These people are insane. But business moguls, I respect it. I don't respect Standard Oil, though, because of even if you look at the conflict in Israel, taking the land from the bordering country, claiming it's Israel's, just to harvest all the oil out of it.
Yeah.
Things like that. Scumbag move. I think it's Pakistan. Was it Palestine? Was it Palestine that that was the 80s or the 70s when they were doing that? Yeah. And now they changed the name to Standard Oil to something else because everyone hated Standard Oil.
Well, no, they broke up the monopolies and they became Chevron.
Okay.
And ExxonMobil and a whole bunch.
Oh, I thought it was because the hate they were getting. That was my conception of it.
No, it was in the progressive era in the 1900s. They broke up the Rockefeller monopolies and U.S. Steel, the railways, and all that stuff because they had too much power consolidation. Because that's where all human power comes from is whoever controls the energy and means to control the energy at the time and make the most efficient logistic systems makes the rules. Someone told me, and I agree, it's called the golden rule. It's not the fake bullshit one of do unto others as you'd wish done to you. That's a bullshit one. The real golden rule is whoever controls the gold makes the rules.
Historically,
And whoever makes the gold, that is an analogy that they would use for whoever controls the logistics energy sources. So, and that's in terms of communication and transportation. That's why Carnegie and steel got so big, because they control communication and transportation, which means that you control everything else. They carried Rockefeller's oil, and then Rockefeller, to cut them out, he actually the railroads and all that. What he did was Rockefeller made pipelines.
Oil pipelines.
Yeah, because he realized it was just as easy to build a railroad track as it was to make a pipeline. So that's why we have all of our pipelines now. So he revolutionized that, or his company did. Oh, and the other one is, since we're talking about conversion of energy, it's because we're going to talk about the future of shit. So, like, if you want less shittier people, they need to find out ways to control energy. And then that's how we get good people in positions of power.
Gotcha.
Right? Whoever can make the
That's a
breakthroughs.
way,
That's the only, because the other way of gaining, there are two ways of gaining control. There's the communist way, which is kill those people who own the means of production.
Yeah.
But then what happens in those communist countries is they become authoritarian and totalitarian. And then that, by doing that, you stifle innovation and creativity, and you kill the goose that laid the golden egg.
Yeah.
So you don't want to become totalitarian, because then you'll stifle your innovation and fall behind.
China, exactly.
Russia.
Intellectual property just
Russia.
stealing. They don't actually create in China.
Oh yeah. Well,
the
what
most
happened
part.
was they're a little bit
Well,
different.
Russia's a better
Where
example.
they
for
stopped
sure. Yeah.
all innovation.
Yeah,
If
that's,
you're going to be a scientist
that's a
in
much better
Russia,
example.
it's not a fun thing to do. Like
you're gonna build the nukes or spaceships, or you're gonna die.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Like it's not a fun place to do.
Yeah. You be KGB or scientist.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
You pick.
Yeah, it's not what we want.
One of the two.
But then, where are we? China, Russia. Oh, innovation. Then the other way to take over a country is with innovation. And that's what Carnegie and Rockefeller did. There were no people murdered in wars, but what they did was use financial leverage to just get all the money, control what the people want. When you control what the people want, which was heating, electricity, and transportation, that was all Rockefeller. He brought all those things, and light and all that stuff with oil, coal, railroads. Whoever owned that stuff owns the people, the control of the people. And that's why they owned our country for so long. You know what I mean?
Some might say they still do. But
Well, not even so much them, because if you look at the profits, they always have. But then what happened was the new energy consolidators were the technology companies like IBM.
Okay.
They started making computers, which helped. IBM became one of the biggest companies in the world because they understood how to control the logistic systems of energy better. They can make all of our communication, all of our computer, all of our business better with technology. So that's why they learned how to use energy more efficiently through technology to become the biggest company in the world.
So has tech surpassed the energy aspect for annual profits and dominance of just importancy?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think perhaps if all of U.S. oil companies converged, originally what Rockefeller had, it might be the biggest one. But it broke up into a whole bunch. The biggest ones now are Chevron and ExxonMobil.
Okay.
Because equivalent would be all of Saudi Arabia. They own about 1/3 of the world's oil.
Jesus.
I think, yeah. It's pretty much like the U.S. owns 1/3 or exports 1/3, and Saudi Arabia exports 1/3, and it's pretty much that they have. It's all a monopoly of one family, where the U.S. had to break up into a whole bunch of competing interests.
I know that the top 5 largest oil companies they made like roughly estimate like $900 billion in the last decade prior to COVID.
Oh, yeah.
It's stupid. It's stupid money.
It's
That's why I asked about the tech, because I don't know the tech aspect,
Yeah.
but I'd assume they're neck and neck, if anything, maybe.
Yeah,
I think.
they control, oil controls everything because it's the primary fuel. It's a major feedstock, and without oil, we don't have gasoline, we don't have diesel, we don't have Plastic, we don't have the energy to create microprocessors. Nothing gets created in this modern world without oil. So you need it, and whoever controls the oil,
It's gonna keep profiting.
They make the
keep
rules.
having the dominance of the monopoly. Crazy.
right? So that's where we are now. We right now are in the oil age. Everything is made of oil. We are a fossil fuel civilization through and through. Everything in this room made by people who know science and primarily made from fossil fuels. No ifs, ands, or doubts about it. That's where we are. But one thing that we can do, energy is what we're going to talk about.
Yeah, I digress. My fault.
No.
Yeah,
This is going perfect.
bad,
I'm
my bad,
happy.
perfect.
I'm glad we knew we could.
I feel like you know what to expect when you talk to me at this
Yeah,
point.
exactly. This is why I'm happy with
Fair
it.
enough,
I'm happy.
Yeah.
So the first one is fossil fuels. Because, like we said, the fossil fuel companies do control the narrative. And that's why they're going to be so hard to cut back on what they want, which all relates to this because we're going to talk about clean energy.
Okay.
So fossil fuels, the main takeaways from all this, I wrote